Love that sound. Okay. We have one more person come in. Okay, well, welcome to the 2023 course planning night. We're going to cover a bunch of ground, and throughout this whole process, if you have any questions, like I said earlier, please do interrupt me. We are going to have a few people who've run the race a lot who are available for a Q&A once we get through going through the course preview. So we're going to start with just sort of walking through the race. We'll go over Cal Topo and just kind of follow along the course. That'll probably take about 20 minutes. Then we'll jump to a Q&A with some of our veteran runners. I asked quite a few people to join, but unfortunately some of them couldn't make it. So I think our panel is all dudes. We have a lot of lady crushers. They're all just busy crushing and traveling right now. So if you have any questions specifically for women, we can definitely take those down and send them over to like Silke and Heather and people who've run the race 3 or 4 times. After that, I want to jump through, and I got my list up here. We're going to talk about kind of pacing and some ways you can predict your pacing, plan for some outcomes. We'll cover the required gear. Then we'll go through like the weather, the snowpack, kind of what you can use to gauge if you're coming out to train. And then we'll cover some map options I've got, which will help in planning and for your crews. And then lastly, we'll cover pacers and crews. That'll also include, drop backs and anything else that's relevant. Since a lot of the stuff bleeds over, it's easier in most situations if it touches on a point to just get to it right there where it's fresh. So don't feel like you just have to wait if you have like a crew question as we're going through the course or something like that. We won't try to get too much in the weeds, but like I said, it's easier when we're going through it to just get to it. So with that said, I'm going to start sharing my screen, and I'm going to share this screen. All right. Can folks see my screen that looks like a map? Give me a thumbs up if you can. Excellent. Okay. All right. All the people are joining the waiting room. So I'm going to start with just the high level view. And I'm sorry, when this is live streaming, sometimes there is a little bit of a lag. So if I'm moving too fast or it's starting to bog down, just let me know. But this is the general shape of the race. This is the start finish line right here. And we're sort of sandwiched between 2 towns. This is the town of Buena Vista, which is where I live and Kelsey live. And then down here is Salida, which is a slightly larger town. And then right in between, there's this tiny unincorporated town called Nathrop, and that's officially where the race starts and finishes. Both of these towns are great spots for being your hub. So, coming in and staying in either of these places is a great option. There's good food and lodging in all of them. And they're both kind of equally split between the course, just depending on which way you're going to be is going to kind of dictate. So obviously Salida is closer to like the back half of the course and Monarch and stuff, and BB's closer to like Cottonwood and the upper stuff. But when we started the race, we started in this little field that we rent from the state of Colorado, and it's literally just a field. And we park everybody in here, and you'll kind of come in on this road here, you'll get parked in this area, and then it starts over here in this corner. And the race is pretty straightforward. You leave the field. I try to mow it so it's not a total death trap because it's this big native clumpy grass, but it's pretty straightforward. And then within a couple hundred yards, you pop out onto this road. And this road is the only section of pavement that you're going to be on, but it's obviously start and finish. Don't forget, guys, if you just joined, to mute yourselves for me, please. So you come down this road, and this is one big switchback that comes all the way down right over the Mount Princeton Hot Springs. And this is a really popular tourist trap. It's a great hot springs as well. It's worth going to if you come to the area. But this is sort of like, it's like Disneyland. It's really busy, and it's a lot. Fortunately, in the morning, there's no one here, and you guys will blitz through this. You come all the way down, and you get into this road. This is called Chalk Creek Drive. And you're on it for a little bit. This is fairly busy, so we have a sheriff that sits right here and just helps slow traffic, but you get through that pretty quick and you pick up this little climb onto this side road. And about 3 miles in, you hit the Colorado Trail. And right as you hit it, you get an 800-foot climb in about 3/4 of a mile, which sets a great tone for the race. So we get you going right away. You pop up this ridge, and then from there, it's this really beautiful, flowy single track. And you run that all the way into Raspberry. And Raspberry is on the way out, obviously just a very quick aid station. It's kind of a water drop, and people tend to blow through pretty quickly. It's worth taking your time to make sure you get what you need here, because the next aid is 4,500 feet away and requires you to go over 13,000 feet. So don't totally blow through this, but obviously it's so early, you don't really need to spend a lot of time. From there, you got a little bit more cruiser single track, and then a mile out, you hit this cattle gate. And when you hit the cattle gate, that's when the climbing kind of starts. And from there, you climb through some timber, and eventually you reach a junction called Little Brown's Trail. And this is one of those confusing spots where they use the same name twice. We use Little Brown's, which is this trail up here. Right below it is Brown's, and that's all they distinguish themselves, Little Brown's. And I wish they called it like Big Browns or something, but it's just Brown's. We don't use Browns, we use Little Browns. So if you come out and train, it's really easy to be like, oh, it's Browns, and then just like pop up and all of a sudden you're on the wrong corridor. During the race, it's marked really well, you won't miss it, but make sure that when you come out, you hit this trail. And this is a really, really fun trail. It's fantastic. If you're really, really fit and acclimated, it's actually fairly runnable. Would argue maybe you shouldn't be running that, but regardless, it's the single biggest climb in the race. And if you look at the elevation profile, it's this one right here. And so you've got, comparatively, the next climbs that you're looking at are half the size. So you don't want to go too nuts on this. It also, for whatever reason, it can just get really hot for how early it is and how high it is. And so last year, a lot of people got cooked here. Other years, it's been really chill. You'll climb for a while. At the very top, you'll see this little thing called tread ends. The trail doesn't get used that much, and so the very top of it is actually it's just a meadow. There's no actual tread going through it. The district has started trying to put the tread back in, but it's not complete. So when you get here, you'll just start seeing some markers go off in the distance, and that tells you you're going in the right direction. The saddle is this big, broad field that's between these two peaks, between Mount Antero, which is a 14er, and Mount White. And this is really open. We have a lot of shots on our website from this spot. There is a photographer here, so no matter what you do, even if you're dying, look good, okay? If you look strong, you'll feel strong. The climbing doesn't quite end until you get just past this point here. And this is where you hit the switchbacks. And again, a lot of photos on the website of this. This is a big mining road, actually, that gets driven by a lot of tourists on Jeeps. And it's massive, and it's really cool. It's actually better the higher you are. So the further down you go, the worse this road gets. But you blast through these switchbacks and you hit the Antero aid station, and that's right at tree line. I think it's like 100 people at tree line. And this is going to put you, with about 5,000 or 6,000 feet of vert, and you're at about 18 miles at this point. Antero is another one of those that you can kind of just take what you need and get moving through it. It's really hard for these guys to get up here. It takes them quite a while. So they have exactly what you need and nothing extra. So we don't do a ton of like hot foods here, but we have some, a lot of water and, gels and that kind of stuff. But there isn't a drop bag here. Your next aid station has drop bags though. So you blast through this, and then you've got this really tantalizing, the remainder of this descent all the way back down to almost the elevation you start at. And this is where you can do a lot of damage too soon. Again, it's your single biggest climb and descent sandwiched together at a very early point in the race. It's also where the race starts getting a little bit of warm for some people. So you don't want to get too crazy. And Kevin brings up a good point. There is water on the descent into Antero, or from Antero, sorry. So there's a couple of creeks that you cross that have good water. So you can douse or filter if you bring a filter. You'll go down 4,000 feet, and right at the bottom, you come back to this road. This is the road we started on, actually. It's just further uphill. And you do a little dog leg, and you hit this road, you turn right, and there'll be a sheriff here till about 2 p.m., which should get most everybody. And you do a right, and then you do a quick left. And this is just to get you off of this busy, dusty road and get you onto this very rarely used side road. So you get into this side road, and this thing sort of grinds a bit. Some people have a great time on it. Some people kind of get smoked on it. Just depends on the day you're having, but there's not a lot of vert. It's just douche grade. and you run through that, and then you click back into the road, go through this tiny little ghost town. It's not a very ghosty ghost town. It's got this really cool antique store that sells ice cream and Coke, and it gets a lot of traffic. So it's actually fairly busy, but you'll go through the main street, you'll do a little turn, and then you come up, and this is where the out and back starts. And we'll have a marshal here to turn you in, but from here, you're going to do this out and back over Laws Pass. And this is one of my favorite sections of the course. It's absolutely stunning, and it's an absolute ass kicker. It will just destroy you. It is 6.5 miles, just under, from St. Elmo to Cottonwood. You'll go up 2,000 feet, drop 2,000 feet, turn around and do the same thing. So it's fairly steep. The Cottonwood side is definitely steeper and more technical. The St. Elmo side of Laws Pass is a lot easier. So you head out, this is kind of steep and sandy, then you get into these really pretty meadows, you'll get up to Laws Pass. We have another photographer here. We have a little barrelhead from Laws Pass up there. It's a great photo op. Make sure, again, you look strong, even if you want to die. And then you bomb down. And Cottonwood is at the 50K mark, and this is the first place you get to see crews. To get to Cottonwood as a crew, you have to shuttle. You can't drive to it. There's no parking. And it takes a little bit of 4-wheel drive or high clearance. So we have a shuttle system. They'll take you from just above the lake. This is Cottonwood Lake. They'll take you from about right here. There's a big field. Parking attendants will park you. And then it's $10 to shuttle up per person to the aid station. And then at the aid station, and I'll switch to satellite, there's this nice little clearing over here. And this is where crews get to congregate. This is where the shuttles come in. So when you come in, you'll pop over this little fence and you'll stand at this really pretty meadow. Great spot. No cell service, so you'll just have to enjoy the atmosphere, but you get great views as a crew. Runners will come in, and this is where we tend to start seeing some drops, the people who are really getting hit hard by altitude or heat. But it's easier to keep going than it is to drop because of, obviously quitting is not great. But if you're going to drop, this is a solid place because if you have a crew or you need to ride out, there's a lot of options. But obviously, we prefer you to keep going for it. Assuming you make it out of there, this is a grunt to get back up and over Laws. Once you crest it, the descent is actually really cruiser, and you can get some good time back there. You'll hit St. Elmo again. And then from there, you have this section of Forest Road from St. Elmo. This is 3.2 miles up to Tin Cup. And Tin Cup is a fairly small aid station, but it's high in energy. They do unicorns up there and rainbows. So it's got like 1 shelter and 4 people who are just tripping the whole time on Stoke, and it's noisy and they run out to meet you. It's an absolute blast. It is sort of similar in the way Raspberry 2 and Antero, which is it's a fairly trim aid station. They don't do a lot of warm foods. They have like broth basically. And it's really just here to make sure that you make the turn and you get on the Continental Divide Trail. This climb right here is, it's harder than it looks. If you look on the elevation profile, it's actually not that crazy steep. It's this section between these two right here. But it is about 300 feet a mile, and it's usually hot, especially if you're in the middle of the pack or ahead of that. So it's a good spot to just focus on eating, because once you hit Tin Cup and go just a little bit past Tin Cup, you're above tree line. And you can see that the distinction here is where it goes from this green shading to this white. The white is all above tree line. And you can see you are above tree line for about 5 miles. And that might sound awesome, and it is awesome, but it's also where most people lose their stomachs. This is where you're going to pay for anything you messed up earlier. And again, if you look at the course profile, you're like, this looks like one of the easiest sections of the race, but this will come and haunt you. So focus on eating and fueling as long as you can through this section. If you can get through this and have gas, you're in fantastic shape. You'll run through, this is the most remote section of the course, and it's one of the coolest. It's really fantastic. So if you can get this in daylight, you should. You'll come over, there's this little alpine tunnel that was an old rail tunnel. At the time, it was the highest tunnel in the world for trains. You'll bomb down this. Sometimes in some years, there's a snow field right here. With our snowpack, it shouldn't be an issue. There's a chance maybe it's a little mushy, but there shouldn't be any standing snow. You pick up from there this really nice railroad grade. And this is a kind of a nice relief. You're back in the tree line, and it's this, I don't know, 3-4% downhill that you get to follow and go all the way down and hit Hancock. And yeah, Grant Mueller, who's been here 4 out of 5 years, has seen moose 2 out of 4 years up there. He dropped it in the chat. One year we actually had somebody get charged by a moose because they didn't yield to the moose, and moose win every time. So yield to the moose. Hancock is mile basically 49. This is the halfway point for all intents and purposes. And this is the next place you get to see your crew. It is a really big hoof to get from Cottonwood to here as a crew. It's about hour and 45 minutes on average to get here. It also takes runners a lot longer than that to get from obviously Cottonwood to here. So as a crew, this is the great spot to like try to time really nicely and don't show up like 6 hours early. There's not a lot of parking. It can get really cold. There's mosquitoes. It's just a nice spot to like kind of come in an hour ahead, post up. Hancock is a huge aid station. We have tons and tons of support. And this is where you can pick up your pacers. And it just occurred to me, I missed a point at Cottonwood that I want to drop back in. Cottonwood is where you have to pick up the divide gear, which is the more robust gear list. And we'll cover that in a little bit, but you pick that up at Cottonwood and you have to carry that all the way to Monarch Pass, which is the section basically while you're on the Continental Divide. There's a gear check as you leave Cottonwood. And then when you get to Hancock, there's another gear check. And the reason we check it twice is because you're going into the night here usually. And this is where people are picking up pacers. And about 80% of runners use pacers. So we check pacer gear here too. If you don't have the gear, you don't get to continue. So make sure that you have the gear. If you're nervous about it, pack extras in drop bags or with your crews. Worst case scenario, sometimes you can bump something off of somebody too if you dropped it. From here, you're going to climb this really terrible road. This is objectively terrible, and it's terrible because it's just loose and it has these sort of cantaloupe-sized rocks that just litter this trail. It is like, I don't know, maybe 1.25 miles, and just persevere. It's a great spot to just eat, like grab some food, hike and eat at the same time, and get up to the lake. And this lake is phenomenal. It is so pretty. And from here, you pick up single track again. And this single track is really, really fun. You have a really short, kind of punchy climb to get up to Chalk Creek Pass. And then from here, this is my favorite descent on all of the race course, is this awesome drop all the way down into the north, or the middle fork of the North Fork of the Arkansas. If you can say that fast while you're running, that's a good sign you're breathing well. This is where there's a little out and back to an aid station, and the aid station is Lost Wonder Hut, which is an actual backcountry ski hut. It's really cute. And you want to make sure you don't miss it. We do post a marshal there for, I think they're out honestly for like 14, 15 hours. So it's a big ask, but we have a volunteer right at this junction that'll point you up this way when you come out, or come in, sorry. And then as you come out, they'll make sure that you keep going so you're not going to get lost. The trick to look for, this is a talus field, believe it or not. These blocks are the size of refrigerators or mini fridges or something. They're really big, and it's a fantastic trail. You can see it. They basically lasered this thing in. You'll know when you go through this. You'll go through some small ones over here, but when you hit the big one, that means you're almost at the out and back. So just kind of use that as a reference point. Lost Wonder Hut is super cool. It's an off-grid hut. There is a restroom. They have an oven. So we actually do a backcountry pizza there. They do cheese and a pepperoni, I think is usually the 2 types they do, but they cook it fresh. It is an absolutely awesome aid station. Almost too nice. You kind of want to park up there for a little bit. Don't give in to temptation and push through. And from there, you've got probably the second crux of the race. You got this little bit of single track junk that you got to get through. I say junk, but I say that affectionately. They just make you climb up to drop back down again. I don't know why, but you get through that and you come to the Boss Lake Trailhead. And this is where you pick up kind of the start of the big climb. And this climb takes you from this road here all the way up to the ridge, which is a section that the race got its name from. And you'll come up through this, and this is kind of a punchy climb. You hit the lake. The lake is fairly straightforward, but there are a lot of like fishing and social trails. So we mark it really well. It has been vandalized a few times. But it's signed usually well enough anyway, you can figure your way through it. Most folks are hitting this in the dark. So you'll have your headlamps and stuff and just keep pushing through. You'll come through this, and this is a really nice section of trail. You pass another smaller lake, and then you hit the head wall. And the head wall is so cool. It's this last couple of switchbacks before you gain the ridge itself with about 12, what does it say, 12.5? Yeah. And you can actually see the lights climbing up, and you will go and just see these lights like they're climbing out like in the sky, and they're actually not, they're like very close to you, but the visual effect is just spectacular. Kendall's asking that, just to confirm, the Lost Wonder Hut aid station, you have to stop in and check out. That is correct. If you don't cover every inch of the race, you will get pulled, and it will be a DQ or a DNF. So you do have to go to every single aid station. If you get lost, you have to backtrack as well, and then pick up where you deviated. Good news is it's not that easy to get lost here. You'll hit the head wall, get through that, and you pick up this divide, this ridge line, sorry, that's right on the divide. And this is phenomenal. This is the section that dreams are made out of. It's also deep enough in the race, a lot of people are hurting. But if you have any juice and you can run this section or just jog it, you can make up a ton of time here. High enough and late enough in the race, most people are hiking this. But if you can get any momentum here, this is a great spot. A lot of this is sort of undulating. So you get some nice descents, but then you'll get a little bit of a bump. And then kind of descend again. So it's not like totally cruiser where you can just get into the same gear. It does kind of undulate. You'll eventually hit the Purgatory aid station. Mike, yes, water filters are definitely recommended, or suggested, I should say, and we'll cover that with the gear list in a little bit. I'll go through some more info on that. Purgatory is supposed to be a very small aid station, but our aid station captain there is a food, he's just a foodie. So he makes tons and tons of food. It's turned into like probably the backcountry equivalent of a Michelin star aid station. So it's fantastic. It's right at the top of the ski hill, and it's from 3 miles to get to Monarch Pass, which is miles 69 basically. And so you don't really need to spend a lot of time at Purgatory. Your crew is waiting if you have them at Monarch Pass, so is your drop bag. So it's a good idea to sort of just like get what you need from Purgatory and just keep moving. Get off the ridge as fast as you can. You'll go through the ski area. You're on a cat track road. It's a little confusing because of the run, so we try to mark it really diligently, but just pay attention in this spot. You'll eventually cross an old Monarch Pass, which is an old wagon road. You'll keep going past it, and then you're going to cross the highway. There's marshals here. We don't stop traffic. This is a state highway, so you don't get to cross until there's no cars. The marshals make sure that you're not going to get hit in your delirious state, so make sure to follow them. When you get across from there, the aid station's big, it's huge. Make sure to check into the aid station before you start working with your crew. Don't run straight to your crew and then come to the aid station 20 minutes later and say, I'm out, because then we won't know you ever came in. So make sure to go to the aid station first, then pick up your crew, your drop bag, whatever you need. And then this is the tip I wish everybody would really, really do. Monarch is almost 12,000 feet. It is not worth staying at because it's hard to eat at elevation. It's tempting because it's warm, but if you can get down to Fuses, you'll drop almost 3,000 feet and your stomach will feel loads better. So just, if you can get through Monarch, get what you need, and then get down to Fuses, like that is a great, great strategy. Speaking of getting down to Fuses, you have this really short little stint on the ridge, and then you hit Satan's Slip and Slide. It's only Satan's Slip and Slide if it's wet. If it is wet, it's very slippery. If it's not slippery, if it's not wet, it's pretty fine. A little steep at the top, and then you pick up a power line and you run this power line cut down to a road, and from the road, you run all the way into the aid station. This is a really easy descent. It's fairly gentle. You can motor it, that's good. Fuses, great aid station. It's a good spot to try to chow down. You're gonna get out of that, cross the highway. This is the same one you crossed up at Monarch Pass. Same story, there's marshals here, make sure to listen to them. You get across, and then you hit the Hill of Broken Dreams. And it's called the Hill of Broken Dreams because multiple runners tell me that this is where their dreams died, because they thought they were all done with the vert, and all of a sudden they hit this climb and they're like, oh my God, there's still 5,000 feet of vert to do. So This is not that bad in real life. If you ran this fresh, you would be like very happy. It'd be enjoyable, but on tired legs, this thing kicks. Push through it because this section's a little tough. It just rolls, and you just got to keep kind of taking what you get, move over, and turn over as much as you can and get through it. You'll do a big descent into our Chavano campground. And this is where it gets a little confusing. There's the Angel of Chavano campground, and there's the Chavano aid station. But you run through the campground essentially to get to the aid station. The campground is not the aid station itself. So make sure you don't get confused there. Get to this. This is a very small aid station. It's like Think Cup, very little hot food. It's got water, Cokes, some gels, that kind of stuff. But it's really just here to make sure that you don't get lost in the campground, because that's happened a few times in the past. There's a little climb out of Chavano. It looks big. It's the same deal. Just punch through it. You get up on the plateau, and it's really easy running to Blanks. This is just over 2 miles away. So just push through it. Blanks is a great spot to switch pacers. You're at basically 18 miles to go from this point. You want to go and move as well as you can through this next section. This is very rolly, it's douche grade, it's the Colorado Trail, and it is hot if you're in the back half of the race. If there's any cloud cover, it makes a huge difference. If it's not, it's just kind of stagnant. You're in this timber stand and you're sort of like following this topographical line. You're just kind of bobbing and weaving through these gullies, and it just gets really warm. There's good solid water through here. So if you have a filter, you can drink more, you can douse, just push through it. And eventually you'll wind up back at Raspberry, and you'll pass the turn for Little Browns as you went up. You get back to Raspberry. You're 7.3 miles from the finish now. You have really nice running, a very tiny little climb to get back where you came through, that big drop down to the road. And then at this point right here, you're allowed as many pacers as you'd like. So once you come off the Colorado Trail and you hit 290, this is County Road 290, you can pick up, if you've got a couple of friends, or you've got some kids that want to run, great spot to have a crew. And from there, you've got a little over 3 miles on gravel and then pavement. And then you've got Swear Hill. Swear Hill sucks. It's 400 feet. It's not that much, but it's miserable. Just push through it. As soon as you hit the top, you're basically home. You can hear the crowds cheering, push through it, make the turn into the field, and you're done. So there's a couple backed up questions in the chat. I'm going to hit those real quick. Folks are asking about filters, if crews should have them. You definitely don't need a filter. You can get through this race without a filter. It's just helpful to have a filter because it's easy to dry out. The consequences of drying out are high, and these filters are super small, and they just screw on to your soft flasks. So it's really handy just to hold one of these, in a pocket on your pack, and then if you need it, you have it. Matthew's asking, where in the course can we expect to have wet feet? If the years are fairly average, which looks like what we're going to get, you shouldn't really have many instances of wet feet. You can definitely get wet feet in the section from Alpine Tunnel to Hancock, and then a little bit around Hancock Lake and past Chalk Creek Pass. It can get a little boggy, but it's really condition dependent. If it's been windy and warm, it's fairly dry. You can cross every stream, especially if you have poles, you can vault just about every stream. Any big piece of water has a bridge or like a very clear kind of rock hop to get across it. So I would say you can probably keep your feet pretty dry. But if having a little bit of, wet feet care experience probably wouldn't hurt either. Let's see. Folks are asking about water. Lots of water spots. I'm actually trying to mark on this map non-seasonal water flows so that folks can sort of see what they're coming into. You can use this map during the race. I'll get into that later. But I mean, there's a decent amount of water. You can probably get through this without aid stations that much if you had a filter. The problem is if you slow down a lot, you can just get caught out, and it can really suck. All right, that's a lot to throw at everybody. There's some good beta in the chat. Go ahead and pop in there if you want to see what people are talking about. Any other questions about the course before we start going into some training Q&A? If you have any questions, go ahead and unmute yourself or drop it into the chat.
Yeah, I've got one for you, Caleb. This may sound kind of funny, but for crews, are four-wheelers or ATVs allowed for use?
No, I mean, legally no, because you can't use them on any of the roads that go to crew accessible aid stations. So the course is a closed course. Crews are only allowed at crew accessible aid stations, including spectators. So you can't just pop up on the course and cheer. That's a Forest Service requirement because obviously we have a big impact on everybody else's day. So if you have quads and you want to come out and rip around the day before, the day after, and just tour some spots, you can certainly do it. But every aid station is accessible in an all-wheel drive vehicle. So you definitely don't need a quad. I would say you can get there in a low clearance two-wheel drive, but it is sketchy and slow. So if you have like any form of all-wheel drive, you're pretty much good.
Okay, but just to make sure, so if I understand correctly, quads aren't allowed during the race for a cruise?
No, because you can't legally drive a quad on any of the roads that go to the aid stations that are crew accessible. Because they're I guess there's one you can do it, but the county roads don't let quads because they're unregistered vehicles on them. So you wouldn't be able to kind of get around on the quads.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Good question. Christina is asking, can we carry an emergency blanket or does it have to be a bivy? It does have to be a bivy. I'll go into that more when we go through the gear list, but the gear list is definitely bulletproof. Good questions so far. Kevin saying there's water on the Cottonwood side of Laws Pass and 1 or 2 spots on the right side of Tin Cup Road. Definitely. Any other questions? You guys are going in good directions, so don't dismiss them. Got a question. I assume poles are a must. I don't think you have to have poles. In fact, I think there's probably some zones where poles would be helpful, but there's a lot of sections where you just don't need poles. Like the Colorado Trail section, like poles, you're just wasting energy. I would say that the technicality of the trail never jumps out at you like East Coast style, where the roots are trying to kill you. But there's just a lot of loose rocks and sort of channelized tread that's been eroded. So having poles can almost be more of a help on the downs because you can kind of balance yourself a little bit better. But in general, High Lonesome is not particularly steep, which goes to a next question that Megan has. Are there any climbs where you're scrambling with hands? No. There was a section that you kind of had to do that, but the Colorado Trail folks rerouted it and they just they basically put some switchbacks in, so it's not as steep. But no, the trail is not particularly steep. You can actually kind of see that if you pop into the terrain stats and you look at this slope angle breakdown, you can see that like most of this is fairly low. Like the average is 14, the max is 45, and that's degrees. So it's not that steep. Good questions though. Let's get some more. Anybody else have any questions? All right, let's see. Kevin's saying there's a lot of climbing, but it's not crazy steep like something at Hard Rock. I would agree. All right, I'm gonna last couple of questions for folks about the course. Then we're gonna jump into some training related questions. Going once, twice, 3 times. Okay. All right, let's see. We've got a nice group of folks that oh, do we have a question? All right, we didn't have a question. We have a nice group of folks who volunteered to kind of be a little Q&A panel for folks. I can't quite see everybody who's on here, but I know Kevin's on here, Kevin Candidate. He's run and finished every year of the race, lives in Conifer. I saw Grant Mueller is in here. Grant's a 4-for-4 finisher coming back for his 5th. He's down in Georgia. Ryan Smith, I saw you bump on at one point. Ryan's got our course record and has run twice. His wife Silke is going for her 4th finish. So the Smith family represents at high-low. And there's some other finishers in here, so we can definitely tap those folks. But my hope with this was to let you guys ask these guys questions. I know a lot about the race, but obviously I haven't run it. So this is a spot where you can talk to people who have. So the first question, I'm going to start us off and then let you guys take it from there. But Ryan, you're first on my screen. And this question goes to Ryan, Grant, and Kevin. What's the number one section if you could preview the race and you could only do it once? What section would you want to preview and why?
I would probably pick the section that you might be running in the dark, whatever that time might be for you. I would preview that because either it'd be good to be familiar with the terrain, but more than that, it's quite often one of the more scenic areas for a lot of people. And it would be kind of criminal not to see that in the light. So if you can come up and see it, yeah, probably choose that. So for a lot of people, that might be the ridge leading up to, the High Lonesome Ridge leading up to kind of Monarch Pass. It's just such a stunning area. I also really like the kind of climb up and over towards Alpine Tunnel as well. It's a really cool section. That one can get pretty boggy, but it's pretty beautiful. There's a lot of wildlife there as well. That's probably the number one spot. I think if you're going to see anything interesting, it's probably likely to be around that kind of zone, whether it's moose or something more exotic. But yeah, that's a good spot.
Awesome. Good beta. Thanks, Ryan. Grant, you're next on my screen. What would you say?
I definitely agree with if you can make it up to Monarch, and part of it is confidence because that can be a scary area, especially if you're up there in the dark and it's a stormy night or something. The first year it was really stormy, and I know me and the buddies from Georgia who I was out there with, it was unfamiliar territory, and it was just kind of treacherous feeling. But a couple years later, we went out there and looked at it in the light, and it kind of was like, what were we worried about? This is beautiful. So the next time you go out there, you feel a lot more confident about the area around, even if it's dark and you've seen it in the light and you know that it's not going to kill you. And then, yeah, Alpine Tunnel is great. I actually really like the climb up to Antero. It's the hardest in the race, but up there at the top, looking into the basin, man, it's hard to get enough of that. So,
yeah, I love that section up Little Browns. Awesome. Thanks, Grant. Kevin, what would you say?
Yeah, so I was thinking of having 2 different answers, like Mountain West people versus maybe Flatlander people, but I think the answer now is the same for both. And I would send you out on the out and back from St. Elmo because I think it's most representative of what you're going to run into pretty much everywhere on the course. Like those aren't the longest climbs, but you get some of the cruiser trail on the way out, a little bit of the techie stuff on the backside, a little bit steeper. But if I were going to send you like on 13 miles of the trail to get an idea of what the route is, that's where I'd send you.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think that's a good section too, Kevin, because it's really easy to do it as an out and back. You don't have to shuttle anything. It's literally an out and back, so you can it's really easy to get to. I'm just dropping the course page of High Lonesome's website in the chat. This has a breakdown of the elevation profile, mileages between aid stations, elevations, all the breakdowns in that. If you want to reference that when you're asking any questions, go ahead. But let's see. We got a question in the chat. Kendall is asking, living in Texas, not all land is open to explore. Is all the course able to public, or are there any limitations to be aware of? That's a really great question. The course is 100% public land, with the exception of the start and finish line, which is private land that we lease. So you can start from the pavement, basically at the start line, and do all of the course, and it's all public, and you can be on there anywhere you want. The thing to watch out for is the town of St. Elmo. That is a private town. So, and a lot of the people actually own cabins and homes in there, and the parking on Main Street is private parking. It's only for the businesses that are there. So if you're a runner, you park just before the town. There's this big RV pull off where you'll see tons of trailers and sometimes campers even, and that's a good place to park. Or if you have 4-wheel drive and you do need genuine 4-wheel drive, you can get up to the Poplar Gulch Trailhead, which is where our St. Elmo aid station is actually located. All right. Krista asked, if the race is temporarily stopped or for any reason, how will runners know? The only way we can effectively stop the race, and we've only had to do this once, was just stopping at aid stations. And that was basically a flash flood issue, and it was a microburst. And so we sent out some people to grab people on the roads. The aid station stopped people. And that's about it. If you're in between sections, there's no way to reach you. You'll just have to go to the next aid station. But that's partly why we make you carry all this gear, is because if the weather does turn heinous, you're equipped to sort of be able to handle it. All right, other training relating questions for Ryan or Grant or Kevin. Grant's from Georgia, so if you're a Flatlander, he's got a lot of beta on that. Kevin was in Wisconsin, so same story. Ryan Ryan is great if you're planning on trying to take down the course record. He's also crewed before, so he's got good beta. Mike asked a question, would you get DQ'd for stopping? No, you wouldn't get DQ'd for stopping. I mean, if you miss a cutoff because you stopped, then that would, effectively stop you, but you wouldn't get disqualified. You're not allowed to deviate from the course. So if you just stop on the course, you're fine. But if you dipped off the course for any reason, that would be a problem. Yeah, I wouldn't advise stopping at the St. Elmo store. Sorry, he was clarifying that he's actually talking about the St. Elmo store. You're not allowed to get aid outside of the aid station. So stopping at the St. Elmo ice cream stop would be unwise. So let's see. Okay, my apologies. You're not Flatlanders. You're Lowlanders. I apologize. I lived in Kansas, which was flat and low. So that's why I Freudian slipped. Let's see. Megan asked, as a Flatlander, trying to figure out what my best bet for the last big training run 6 weeks before. Easy 100-miler, 100K. Ryan, you commented there is no easy 100. Flesh that out for us. What would you do 6 weeks before high-low?
I don't think I'd do either of those. Yeah, 100-mile, 100K, I think is pretty, definitely not for me, that's for sure. Maybe 50 miles or something like that could be reasonable. But I mean, anything honestly for me above 40 miles is kind of an impact to the kind of training rotation. So yeah, I would kind of be cautious about that. But maybe myself, I might do 35, something like that. 40, okay. Maybe. But most, that's just me.
That's fair. Kevin, Grant, have you guys done any big tune-up races about that 6-week, 8-week mark before high-low?
Yeah, I mean, in May or so, if we can get out to Cruel Jewel, if somebody brings up the Duncan Ridge Trail here, it's funny. That's like, if we can get out on the Duncan Ridge Trail, it's the steepest miles you can get in Georgia, and it's hot. The only advice I would say is if you're coming from somewhere lower elevation, to just try and get as much time in the heat as you can. That's about as close as you're going to get to anything altitude if you're coming from the southeast or Florida or something like that. But yeah, I mean, 100-mile or 100K, that's probably a bit much. But if you can get out on like a 50-mile or 50K or something in the heat, that would be good training.
Yeah, Kevin, any thoughts there?
Well, so I've done the Kettle Moraine 100-mile like twice before Lonesome, and I don't know that I'd recommend it, but like Grant was saying, it certainly did help with like running, like leg turnover, fatigued, and staying warm, like being warm, just because it's so muggy, especially during the afternoon of that race. But then I think something more reasonable is like what probably Ryan was saying, like 35 miles. I mean, I've done Silver Rush also before the race. That's like 3 weeks, I think. But that's very Colorado specific and pretty high at altitude, so it really wouldn't apply to any lowlanders.
Yeah. I think a lot of this comes back to to individual training. Like I like to do 100K or 50 miler about 8 weeks before a race. Like it's long enough to recover, still get a block of training, and then taper. One of the people asked in the chat if they should do San Juan Solstice. Yeah, Ryan, your response that they should because one of the best races in North America is absolutely true. San Juan, I think, and I will die on this hill. I think San Juan's the best race in Colorado. Like it is phenomenal. The views are insane. It's a 50 miler, so it's accessible to so many different types of people. It's a great cutoff. It's very fair. It's stunning. The community is wonderful. Like it is a top-notch race.
It is actually quite reflective of High Lonesome as well, I think, because it has the variability, which I think is challenging in High Lonesome. So it has the extremes of weather, hot, cold, wet feet, jeep roads, technical terrain, steep, easy, douche grade, kind of has the same stuff. So, but yeah, just if you get into it, you should just run it because it's so good.
Yeah, it is so good. I think some people have definitely tried to do it before High Lonesome and found themselves a little bit overcooked come race day for High Low. So I think if you're gonna do it, you got to do it as a training run. Like don't go out and like, throw down at it, like take it chill. But it's a phenomenally good run. And they've never started a full field. So even if you're not on the wait list, if you pitch up Friday at race check-in, Jerry will usually have a spot and you can usually get it. Email him to make sure, but it's a phenomenally good race. Let's see, got some chatter about Kettle, Cruel Jewel, some other race ideas in the chat. If you're not looking at that, jump on over. Any other questions about training? Kendall, it looks like you got your hand up. Do you have a question for us?
Oh, yes. Can you hear me? Sorry.
We can hear you.
Okay. So I guess this is for anyone who is offering advice on training that's ran it more than once. I know I kind of have a creative outlet when I run. And so after seeing a course or running it one time, then I can imagine a better way of training or something I should have incorporated. So do you have a workout that you've created from your experience that you felt like would do really well, or a certain workout that you feel that really encapsulated your effort in the race? And then following that, if you could say any, living in Texas, I'm quite okay being hot, but I'm not as great at being cold. And so any gear advice as far as trying to walk the line between being hot and cold that you recommend?
Yeah, those are great questions. Who wants to jump in on that?
I'll maybe take a stab and go in reverse. The heat is actually kind of a big problem at High Lonesome because of the altitude and the radiation. And you'll probably, like Caleb said, you'll kind of notice that most likely on the way up and over Antero, and certainly running through Alpine towards San Elmo. Both years I've run that's been extremely hot. And I think a lot of people maybe do some damage to their race prospects in that section kind of fairly early on. So I found kind of a very light kind of cooling long sleeve with kind of a light hood or something I found to be quite good, which might be kind of counterintuitive. You might want a t-shirt or something lighter there, but just trying to protect yourself from the sun. So things like a hat as well, just kind of shield you from that brutal radiation. So that's kind of a gear choice that I've done before, mostly in training. And then, yeah, gear's kind of personal, so don't try anything new, obviously. The shoe choice is tough because it's very varied. So I would just have something that's kind of forgiving for your feet. That's going to go the long haul. I don't worry about weight of shoe pretty much in any race I've ever done. It's usually, definitely going to sink your race if you try to go too light. So something fairly sturdy is a good choice there. I forget the original question again. You're gonna have to remind me.
A workout to simulate High
That's right.
Lonesome.
Oof, cheapers. That's really tough. Like I said in my kind of comment, the hardest section for me has always been the Colorado Trail, just because obviously it's the latter part, but it's very hilly. It's very runnable, and if you're really not moving well, you're gonna just, that's a time sink. So I think don't underestimate just the the kind of need to be able to run kind of good solid 20, 25, 30-mile sections with a lot of running, because I think High Lonesome actually does have a lot of running potential in there. So I wouldn't worry too much about the technical stuff, the steep stuff, because just you're going to walk it, you're going to hike it, and it's going to be perfectly reasonable and acceptable. But the more you can run on the easier terrain, the better your prospects, I think, overall.
Mhm. We're getting some good questions in the chat, but Kevin, Grant, any thoughts on training workouts or dealing with the cold at high-low?
Sure. Yeah, so sorry, I'm outside. So training workouts. So this may sound counterintuitive, but like Ryan said, when I was training for this race coming from Wisconsin, I just did as much vert as I could, essentially. I did run kettle prior to the race, so I got a lot of flat running, but the crux of the race is, assuming you get to Monarch, the crux of the race is the Colorado Trail on the way in. So I would recommend, strengthening those quads so they can handle the ups and downs, but you got to be able to run, at least shuffle, because there's so much time to be had in the last 30 miles. So training workouts would be like extended, hard, runnable descents, I think, because you sort of get a little bit of the benefit of strengthening those quads, but working on the turnover. And, if you can get to a spot mentally where you can keep the legs turning, even though you're dead tired, you're going to make up lots of time and you'll have a good race. In terms of heat management, Caleb did mention it. I always find the climb up to Antero, except for year one, because it was pouring, extremely hot. It's just, once you hit about 11.5, you've got 2,000 feet in the direct sun and it's on your back the whole way up. There's a creek for maybe 1,500 of that 2,000 feet. So get in it, get wet, manage the heat there. But then come nightfall, it's going to get pretty cold. And I found that if you do sit at Hancock at mile 49, you're going to get cold. It can be 6 or 7 or 8 p.m. and you're going to feel really cold. So like Caleb said, don't sit there longer than you have to. Just keep moving. Get up and over Chalk Creek Pass and down into Lost Wonder Hut, grab a piece of pizza and keep moving. I think that's the key to like avoiding the cold, is just keep moving. You don't have to be moving fast, just keep moving.
Yeah. Grant, I saw you nodding your head there at some of Kevin's stuff. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a problem with that Hancock sitting around too long and getting really cold. And that's a mistake, I think. I wouldn't sit down there. I would keep up if you can. I mean, if you want to change shoes or something, great, or if you're briefly sitting down. But I would not spend a lot of time at Hancock, and I definitely would not sit around at Lost Wonder Hut. That aid station can suck you in so easily.
So cozy.
So cozy. Yeah, keep moving, especially the only parts of the race I've ever been cold are between Hancock and Monarch. Obviously, it's at night. It's pretty high elevation. But as long as you're moving, I think you'll be fine. Wool, obviously, a couple layers. I mean, the typical stuff. But more than anything, just move. Don't hang out at Hancock. Don't hang out at Lost Wonder Hut.
Yeah, absolutely. I think wool too as a layer, when we cover the gear list, which a lot of people are sort of asking questions that overlap with this, but you have to carry an extra layer from Cottonwood to Monarch. And if you're not carrying merino wool, you are asking for trouble. You need to carry merino. It keeps all your thermal properties when it's wet. So whether it's raining or you're sweating because you're working hard, it keeps you fully warm. So couple questions in the chat. I'm going to try to lump these as best as we can. So there's some questions about shoe height and types of shoes. I'm gonna sort of let that one go because shoes are so personal. I've seen people run this in racing flats to like Hoka Clown shoes. I don't know what model they were, but they were massive. So I think anything that you're comfortable with is worth wearing for that. Two good questions though. One about aid stations I'm going to touch on quickly, and then one about running at the night. So there, aid stations do have shelters. They do have propane heaters or fire pits to warm up. They do have sleeping bags and blankets. But if you're standing around that long, it's a kind of a good sign that you've spent too much time. You should get moving. If you're coming in and you're, close to getting hypothermic or you're freezing and you need to get some core temp back, totally different scenario. Post up, get warm, see a medic, get some fluids in you, that kind of stuff. But in general, there's enough to keep you comfortable and safe, but we're not trying to sort of lure you in. I think to Ryan's point, Lost Wonder is definitely, or sorry, that was Grant's point. Lost Wonder is definitely really cozy, really warm. There's lights. It's a house. You want to go inside and sleep, but just don't. All right, good question about any tips for running through the night and training for sleep deprivation. Kevin, Grant, I feel like you guys probably run through that a lot. I mean, I'd ask Ryan, but Ryan still hasn't finished in the daylight yet. So
I don't bother sleeping. I don't bother training for sleep deprivation. I think that's one of those things that none of the literature, I don't know anybody that does that. That it's just something you tolerate for the one day that you got to do it. Drink some coffee. One thing you can do is, if you're addicted to coffee like I am, drop it for 2 or 3 weeks ahead of the race, and then at 2 a.m. at Purgatory or wherever you happen to be, when they give you some coffee or some Coke, that first dose of caffeine is going to feel like magic again, and you're bright-eyed and happy that you've tasted coffee and all that. Yeah, Red Bull, another option. But I don't know. I don't think you really need to train for sleep deprivation, but that's just me.
yeah, I don't really know what sleep deprivation gets you, because it doesn't really help your training. And I don't think you can really train being tired. You're just sort of changing when you're tired in your day. I do think running at night, though, is really helpful. And Ryan made some comments in there about having a dual light system that can really help create some depth to the trail. But I think absolutely getting the long run in and getting it in at night can be beneficial if you're just not comfortable running with a headlamp. But
Yeah,
Kevin,
Caleb,
yeah, go for it.
I was going to say, so my lowest point energy wise every year is right after the head wall and you get on the crest. Reason being is because it's early evening for me usually. It's not early morning or anything, but you're on a long climb in the dark and you're up at 12,000 feet. So it's just easy to get in a low spot there energy wise. And you're 65 miles into the race, 60 miles into the race. And it's easy to just not want to eat so much. So for me, it's get past that point, get to Purgatory, right? Grab a fancy burger or whatever they got going there, and then get down to Monarch. Because then, like you were saying before, very shortly after Monarch, you're 3,000 feet lower, right? It's going to be warmer. Your body's going to digest food better. You're just going to feel way better. So for me, it's not about sleep deprivation so much. It's about pushing through those low spots more than anything else.
Yeah. I definitely think there's a conversation in the chat about caffeine and whether or not to use it or not. I definitely think caffeine can be helpful, but Ryan said, it can mess with stomachs, and it can also make you kind of jittery, which if you have nerves and you're running at night and you're to Grant's point, it's unfamiliar territory, too much caffeine could hurt you. I will say that I think the places where caffeine is really helpful is actually when you descend in elevation. A lot of people have a fatigue response, a tired response to drops in elevation, and the Monarch to Fous's descent is pretty significant. And so I've seen people just sort of death zombie walking at Fous's because all of a sudden their brain's heavily oxygenated compared to where they've been for the past 8-10 hours. And so if you can do caffeine and stuff on the CT, I think that could definitely be beneficial. Yeah, Grant and Kevin are both singing the praises of how everything gets better after Monarch. Just get away from Monarch, get downhill. More good beta in the chat. Thanks for everybody for jumping in there. Any last questions for Ryan, Grant, Kevin about training strategies or specifics, stuff to the race from all their collective finishes? All right. Last chance. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Yeah, good comment from Brandon. Make sure to try everything before the race. Don't do anything new in the race. Big believer in that. Okay, awesome. Ryan, Kevin, Grant, thank you so much for all of your insight. You're obviously welcome to hang out, but I know Grant, it's like 10 o'clock at your place. So, but anyway, thanks to those guys. You'll see Kevin and Grant at the race this year, and Ryan will be crewing Silke, I'm assuming. So you see their faces, make sure to say hello. All right, let's move on. I want to cover, I was going to do pacing next, but I think we've hit the gear list so many times now. I just want to talk through that real quick. So I'm gonna drop a link in the chat, but I'm not going to open it as a screen share because I want you guys to be able to see what I'm about to show you. So if you click on that link I just put in the chat, it'll take you to the gear list. There's a little bit of info about why we have, screw it, I'm just going to share for a hot second. I forgot to there it is. All right. Can you guys see my screen now? You're gonna hear dogs bark in the background because a friend of mine's coming in to spend the night. Okay, so there's two types of gear lists at high-low. The base gear, and you have to carry the base gear the entire race, including pacers, regardless of where they come in. And so you want to make sure that you're carrying that gear the whole way. As a runner, you don't give up this gear at any point. Then there's a section between Cottonwood and Monarch, and this is a very exposed, high-risk scenario where if something happens, the timeline to get you rescued, the risk of weather scenarios is quite high, and this is extra gear. The point of this gear is for you to survive, okay? It's not for you to use. If you're using this gear, it's sort of a bad sign. But if you have this, your chances of being able to get through something unfortunate or deal with a sudden change in weather is much more likely to be happy instead of sad. So I'm going to go through these really quickly. I'm going to not screen share now so you can actually see when I talk through some stuff. But you have to have a whistle. There's a couple ways to have a whistle. I have an old school UD pack, and it's got a whistle baked in. I just carry that. You can find whistles on some of the bivy bags, like the little clips that they have on there, and chest straps. It doesn't matter where the whistle is, as long as it's on your person during the time you're running. So easier to clip it to something so you don't lose it. The next thing up is the Soul Emergency Bivy. Soul is the person or brand rather that created this bivy kind of mainstream. It's this big, it's really small, it's quite light. It's basically an emergency blanket material with a rubberized or polyester coating that keeps it from tearing. It's also in the shape of a sleeping bag, so it's much more thermally efficient. The reason you have to carry a bivy instead of emergency blanket is because emergency blankets tear and they don't last in the wind, and we have a ton of wind. So a couple of years ago in China, if you remember the unfortunate incident where quite a few people died due to exposure, they were carrying emergency blankets, but their emergency blankets were shredding and they weren't able to use them. So this will help you survive. There's a lot of knockoff brands of this, especially on like Amazon. You can buy knockoff brands. All that matters is they have to have a rubber or poly coating on it and be Mylar and be a bivy. So you'll see that. I mean, they literally have like the same branding. I don't want, but just make sure that they're an actual bivy. There's one place in BV that sells this. They have 6 at any given time. If you forget yours, the odds of them being sold out are quite high. Don't forget a bivy. Don't let your pacers forget their bivvies. You might notice that they sell 2-person bivvies. They're much bigger. This doesn't cover your pacer. Okay, so if you carry one of these and you're like, oh, this covers my pacer, it's a 2-person bivy, doesn't work. Each person has to have a bivy. You can both have a 2-person bivy, but every single person has to have a unique physical bivy. Make sure that you have it and you're carrying it. Next up is 1.5 liters of water capacity. That means you have to have containers that equal 1.5 liters or more that can carry water. You don't have to have them full. If you want to carry half of that or less than that, that's fine. But at any given point, you need to be able to put this much water in your pack. So make sure, I usually use 500 milliliters, so I carry 3 of these, right? If you have a 2-liter bladder, perfect, you're a slam dunk. Emergency light source. I don't have an example of one of these because mine actually broke. But this is what you're carrying before it's nighttime, right? This is when you don't need a headlamp because it's not dark out. An emergency light source can be a cell phone, like flashlight feature. What I really like to carry are the tiny little keychain lights, those single LED bulbs that are like smaller than a key that you just click and they kind of light up. There's a link to one in the gear list that shows you kind of an example. That's the smallest, lightest one you can use. You have to carry that the whole time. The next one is a waterproof jacket. And this is where things get confusing. I'm gonna turn on a light. All right. So a waterproof jacket, to be waterproof, has to have tape seams and have an impermeable fabric. Tape seams look like this. This is a piece of tape that's covering all the holes that your stitching makes in a jacket. If your jacket does not have tape seams, it's not waterproof. So make sure it's actually waterproof. I want to stress this because a lot of people tend to miss this. If you don't have a waterproof jacket, you can't run. And people show up every year, despite all of this information, and show up with something like this. They show up with a Houdini, a Patagonia, great jacket, not waterproof in the slightest. It's not even water resistant. It's not even windproof. It's like thoughts and prayers jacket. It's terrible for anything short of like a 5-second microburst. This thing is not waterproof. It will wet out. It'll sweat out. These are not gonna pass. So make sure if you're showing up that you have a tape seam jacket. I think there is a version of the Houdini that had tape seams. So make sure that, if you do have the Houdini with tape seams, that's fine, obviously, but it just has to have tape seams. I'm a big fan of this really kind of recent, a couple years old, but it's like this really, really thin Gore-Tex material. It's a 2-layer instead of a 3-layer. This is a North Face jacket. That's really good. Arc'teryx makes one that's really nice. I think it's called the Norvan LT or something like that. They're super light, and they fit into really small bundles, and they're fully waterproof. And comparatively to a Houdini, you can see they're about the same size, but this is fully waterproof. Yeah, Megan's asking the pack light. I think pack light's what this is. Honestly, I don't keep up with the branding, so I couldn't confirm. But if you have a jacket that's not waterproof and you're like, this is the jacket I've run every single 100 mile I've ever run in. If I don't run with this jacket, I'm going to be sad. Then I would say you're probably likely to use a loophole, which is carry a poncho, which is fully waterproof, and then carry your jacket. I don't want to see that. I understand some people do. It's a technical loophole. But wearing a gas or a trash can liner is terrible. You sweat through it, you get cold, it's crap. It's 100% waterproof, it never leaks. But as a runner, you'll really suffer without having it. So don't follow the temptation. This is one of those places where, like, I get if your budget's tight, you need to make things work. I completely understand that. But if you have an opportunity to like get a nice jacket, please get a nice jacket, or borrow one. Find some way. There's a lot of good used gear on these websites too now that are pretty handy. Okay, next thing up. Any questions about the jacket? I know that's usually one that has some questions. If you have a question, please drop it in. I'll keep talking to keep things moving. But next up is a collapsible cup. There's 2 main ways people do collapsible cups. There's these sort of Hydro Pack UD ones that collapse like this. They're not terrible, but you can't set them upright. They collapse when they're full of stuff and they drop. So I don't like these. They work though. They meet the requirement. I like these. These are these little accordion style cups that Sea to Summit makes a lot of. GSI makes a few of them as well. The nice thing about these is they're very small and thin. They are decent size, so you can put soups and foods in these. And they have, this one has a metal, but there's other ones that have just like a thicker plastic ring that's insulated. So you can hold this when it's hot and you're not going to burn your hands. It's also big enough that you can like put noodles in here. You can put pierogies, quesadillas, and hold stuff. And half the time when I leave an aid station, I'll finish drinking whatever I'm drinking. I'll load this up with something and I'll just like munch out of it for the next couple hundred yards. So this is really nice. Sea to Summit is what the best, like most common brand is, but they make knockoffs. Highly recommend that. At a minimum, you need to carry at least something like this. This will get you through. What does not count is this. This is a water bottle, not a cup. You can't eat noodles out of this. You can't drink hot stuff out of this. It has to be able to function as a cup. Don't show up with a little tiny Solomon bottle, you know, with the small holes in them and be like, I need some soup, which just doesn't float. So don't count one of these as your cup. Last thing is just a mask or a neck gaiter. I don't think we're actually going to need masks anymore. The COVID thing seems to sort of like blown over, but for now, we haven't made that final call yet. So just plan on having something that you can wear in an aid station in case you have to spend a long time there, so that you can mask up if you're like in a car or something and getting a ride out. Moving on to the divide gear. This is, remember, your burlier gear. Think of it sort of like night gear or high elevation cold gear. That's sort of the focus here. You have to have pants, and pants can be any type of pants. I mean, you can wear jeans if you want, please don't, but like leggings, running pants, tights, anything like that, totally fine. It just has to cover all of your legs. You know, I would recommend something that's got like maybe some thermal properties, but not a ton, because if it's really cold out, you know, you probably want more layers on than just this anyway. If it's warm out, you don't want to be like over layered and carrying a bunch of shit you don't need. So look through what you've got, find a good fit. 2 light sources. This one sounds more confusing than it really is. So remember, you've got your little tiny light source, like you like your phone light, or you've got your little keychain light, or you've got a small headlamp, whatever it is. That's your first light. Your second light's the light you want to be using. It's your actual lamp, right? Your big, powerful headlamp, your waistband, something that you're going to need when it's nighttime. So you don't have to have like 2 huge headlamps. You certainly can, but it's just you have redundancy in case one of them dies. You can change batteries with the other one. You can signal with the other one or something like that if one of them dies. So you have to have 2. A beanie or a buff. Again, if the mask thing isn't a problem, this is a lot more straightforward. But if you're planning on using a buff as your like layer for insulating, you still have to have a second buff to use for a mask. And the reason for that is if you're prolonged experience, if you have COVID, for say, and you're sick and you're getting pulled out of the race and you're sitting around, it's cold, you need to be able to insulate while you're also preventing potentially the spread of the virus. So beanies would be better here. Have a beanie and a buff, gives you the versatility. Again, if we make the decision where we don't need masks, then you can just use a neck gaiter and it's totally fine. But for now, just plan on having 2 of those things. And then the extra layer. And this one is something we've already touched on when we were talking about like what's a good thing to do in the cold. Merino wool, seriously, that is your friend. You can have any different types of thicknesses of the merino, from like really light t-shirts. Actually, this is a merino t-shirt. It's really lightweight, to very thick stuff like you would use maybe when you're skiing. Whatever you want to carry is fine. You can genuinely carry a polyester long sleeve race shirt if you want. The problem is your race speed dictates your body temp. And most of you will think you're going to be moving faster than you actually are at the race. So you're going to show up, you're going to plan for being warmer, you're going to plan for being better hydrated, better fueled, and your wheels are going to come off. And you're going to be walking through freezing cold temperatures because you're not prepared to be sweaty at 12,500 feet and 40 degrees at night. So I highly recommend carrying a nice wool layer. The midweights, I think that's the sweet spot, because that's like enough insulation, but it's not so much that you're going to like bake and sweat it out. Kevin dropped in the chat to be prepared for temps anywhere between 40 on the crest and 80 on the CT. We've had teen digits on the crest trail. So that's the section from basically Lost Wonder through Purgatory into Monarch. We've had blinding snow, sideways snow, literally sideways snow. We've had rain, thunder, active lightning, we've had hail, grapple, blue skies, basically like the clearest skies and warm temps. Like that section will be incredibly volatile. So you want to be prepared. If it's warm and you don't use it, you might be like, oh, I didn't need it. But if it's freezing cold and you don't have it, you're going to be like, what? Why didn't I carry this? So plan for everything and carry and be prepared. Frankly, with this list, you don't have a lot else to throw in there. You kind of covered it. I would say I would maybe carry gloves if I needed to. I like mittens actually, but you can carry those. I'd highly advise for some sort of sun layer, like a hat or a sun hoodie or something in the daytime. I mean, there's like lots of little tweaks, but like this should get you most of the way in there. If you're wondering, like, if I'm wearing all this stuff when I leave an aid station, do I have to carry an extra? Like, no, so long as you physically have it on you, you're good. So if you're wearing pants and a long sleeve, because you've changed and you're out of like your shorts and stuff, you don't have to like have a second pair of this stuff in your pack. You just have to have it physically available to you during the race. All right, any questions about the gear list? All right, going once, going twice, 3 times. Okay, we're gonna, we got Kevin says he used all the required gear except the whistle and bivy. That's good. Those are the 2 ones I want you to never have to use. So keep it up. Poles, do they need to be carried the whole time if they are used? Brandon, I'm not sure I'm following your question there. What do you mean?
If poles are used on the race or during the race by a runner, do they need to carry them with them the whole time? Like some races require, if you use poles to aid yourself, you have to have them with you the entire duration of the race.
I've not heard that, but no, you don't have to. So you can't mule, so you couldn't give them to your pacer example, in between aid stations, but you can certainly drop them at any aid station you want, pick them up at any aid station you want, but the changeover has to be at aid stations. Any other questions? Okay, we're gonna move on. All right, I'm gonna go to the screen share now because I'm gonna show you guys this cool, handy little tool that I like to use when people ask me, what should I plan to run a High Lonesome? Okay, this is Open Split Time, and Open Split Time is the system we use for tracking. We have all of our historical data in here. This allows live tracking during the race. So people, it's not like GPS live tracking where you see, exactly where people are on a course. But this is live in the sense that every time you cross through an aid station, your time is usually up within several seconds to a couple of minutes. So we track time in, we track time out, and whether you have a pacer or not. But for this purpose, what I like, and I'll drop this in the chat. See, I think I closed the chat. Hold on, there it is. All right. So this is the homepage. This shows you all the years of High Lonesome. So 17, 18, 19, 20, and 20, or 21 and 22. And where you want to go is this plan my efforts right here, which is you click on this and you don't have to worry about the date or time. It's not really useful, but you can set in here which time goal is. So let's say you're shooting for like a 30-hour finish. Type in 30 and hit create my plan. And it spits this out, and it's basing this off of historical data. In this case, it's using 84 efforts. And it's extrapolating based on those people's performance, what their averages were at the race. And so this is handy because you can sort of see and this is only counting people who finished. So it's definitely skewed. It's not perfect, but it gives you a really good baseline to start and say, okay, this is roughly what people are doing. And then you kind of tweak it based on what you want. And the cool thing is it gives you the time of day. So it shows you when you need to be coming in and out. It shows you the elapsed time, which is helpful, obviously on your watch, and then segment time, and then it shows you the time in aid. I think this is probably, I don't know how useful this is, but it's really interesting to look at. So you look at this and you can say all right, well, 1 minute at Raspberry or 0 minutes at Raspberry, I'm going to spend probably a minute there to fill up a bottle, right? Whatever. But then you look down here and you're like, man, the average time people spent at Hancock was 15 minutes. Like that's a significant time at an aid station. So you want to, you can kind of like use this to gauge, you can see where people were really hurting, I guess is the way to say it. Like Hancock, Monarch, blanks, like these are big chunks of time people are spending their aid stations. So take that for what it's worth. Then you can export it to an Excel file, CSV file. You can tweak this for any time you want. The max cutoff is 37 hours. That's new this year. So all historical data is going to show you 36. So for the sake of reference, I'm going to say we're going to do a 36-hour finish. And you can see, they're basically saying you need to get in exactly 36 hours. So if you want to go for like 24, which very few people have ever done, you can see that. This was based on 80 efforts, by the way. The other one we looked at was 84 efforts. And if you look at this one, it's also got 84 efforts. We definitely don't have anywhere near the 84 people who've done 24 hours. So this prediction is much less accurate than say like a 30 or a 36-hour finish, because that's when the majority of people finish. So you'll start to see this model not function as well when you're looking at a 24-hour like cutoff. The course records was it 2058, I think right now. That was Ryan's time from last year. So let's see, a couple questions in the chat. Max, the cutoff time is 37 hours, not 36 and not 38. If you finish under cutoff, you get a buckle. If you finish after cutoff, you do not get a buckle. After cutoff finishes are not classified as an official finish. So you're not listed in the finisher results and you don't get a buckle. Anybody who starts though, gets a bottle of whiskey. This bottle, actually, laws, got the race logo. There are no shortcuts, which is the mantra we live by as runners. Okay, use this as a baseline. I just want to stress that. This is not like hard and fast gospel truth. Just like use this as a place to start, tweak it based on your own experience and preferences. Okay, let's see. We talked about required gear. Let's talk about weather for a quick hot second here. There's a thing in the Swatch called the monsoon. And this is basically a guaranteed rainstorm from somewhere between 11 and 3 p.m. 11 a.m., 3 p.m. So basically over like lunchtime. This is literally a monsoon that's blowing up from the Gulf of Mexico into the Swatch and dumping rain. And the temperature differential from 14,000 feet at the top and 8,000 feet in the valley floor creates this like almost like clockwork rainstorm. Most of the time you're going to hit this rainstorm. If you're mid-pack, you're going to hit this rainstorm around St. Elmo 1, going up Laws Pass, essentially. If you're back of the pack, you're going to hit this coming down in Taro. If you're front of the pack, this will catch you basically coming back over Laws Pass as you're coming into St. Elmo 2. The reason I bring this up is because you'll start saying, if this is a normal year, right, and it's bright and sunny and the weather is forecast is solid and it's supposed to be not freezing cold or bad weather, you're going to go up Little Browns and you're going to get cooked. 13,000 feet, 70 degrees is the equivalent of almost 90 degrees at sea level. So you're getting microwave. Then you're going to come all the way down and you're going to get a rainstorm. And it's going to be shady and windy and rainy, and all of a sudden you're going to be cold. It's a blessing and a curse. It's why we make you carry the rain jacket, basically, because the odds of you getting rained on during the race are really high. Moisture is not a big problem, though. You can manage that. The concern we really have is obviously lightning. You're above tree line, lightning risk is significant. So the cutoffs coming into Monarch, which is where you're above tree line, are about 2 hours more generous than a truly 37-hour pace would allow for. And we do that because A, it's significantly harder than the back half of the race, back third of the race. And 2, we want to give you time to be able to hunker down. If it truly gets nasty outside and you need to wait because there's an electrical storm passing over a section and you want to stay in the trees, which is a wise decision, you have some time to do that. That's where having the gear list comes in handy. If it's truly nasty, you've got your bivvy as a backup because you're not moving, so you're going to get cold fast. And it's worth saying, like, if the weather's truly nasty and you don't know if the race is getting paused or extended or something because of that, like, you need to make the best decision you can. Don't focus on finishing at this point. Focus on living. stay warm, stay safe, get to the next aid station. And if we need to adjust the race to be fair, we're going to do that. But be prepared. The other thing that happens is the ridge, which is the section between Lost Wonder and Monarch that we've talked a lot about. That is truly a dangerous section from weather. The first year it was sideways rain with about 50 feet of visibility. It then turned to snow. It was scary. As a race director, I was terrified. And you want to be equipped there for any scenario that you can hit. Usually we can see it coming. The past 2 years, though, we've had a severe weather advisory for the race itself, like on the divide, and we've gone with it. And we've had, fortunately, very small incidents of foul weather, but that weren't significant enough to adjust people's successes or the time race. But it's mountains. And they don't care about you. They're apathetic to you. So don't take them lightly, especially if you don't have a ton of experience in this place. Come prepared and be humble. On a more positive note, talk about the snowpack. So if you've been following with like what's going on at States or Hard Rock, the snowpack's insane. We had an average year. It's crazy. Just on the other side, the Gunnison side had 106% of average this year. We had 100% of average, so dead on average. The way you can see kind of a cool representation of what's going on is there's 2 links. The first one I dropped in the chat is cool because you can actually specifically set locations. The second one is the upper Arkansas headwaters area. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen now to talk through this. This doesn't take very long. Let's see this one. All right. So this just shows our full season. So you can see this is the max that's ever happened. And then this black line is this year's. The green line's average. So you can see, we were a little bit above it, we dropped below it, pop back up, and now we're like exactly on average. So if you carry this line all the way down to the bottom, we are at 0% snow by June 21 at the snowpack stations. So usually there's a little bit of snow above the stations that takes another week or 2 to melt. But if this stays true, we don't get a crazy early melt or a crazy snowstorm. The odds that we have an average year means that the course will be 100% dry by July 1st. So you can run this thing tip to tail without really any snow. The second one I want to show you is specific to St. Elmo. And this is nice because this is like the only one that's actually on the course proper. Like you run by this one. This is the first link I put in the chat. Has a drop down for all the Colorado Snowtel stations. You want to scroll down to St. Elmo and select it and then hit process, and it spits out a chart. And this one is showing you the dark blue line is this year, the light blue line is the average, and then these 2 red lines is just the precipitation equivalent. So this is specifically snow water equivalent. So if you convert snow to rain, and then this is just overall rain, snow, everything combined. So you can see we're having a nice year. We're a little bit above average, which is great given our fire risks. But you can also see that St. Elmo's hit 0, and it hit it just a little bit before this year. So these aren't something you really need to be tuned in too much on, but they're there if you need them. All right. Any questions about weather, snowpack, any of that jazz? That's usually pretty easy. If you do, pipe up now. We're going to keep moving. All right. Next thing I want to screen share. So this is the course page on the Lonesome website. So it's literally just this guy right here. It's a single page. Click on it. It has all the info. Get the elevation profile. The only thing that's not on here is Chavano. I just honestly keep forgetting to get it updated. Chavano, though, is right at this little valley right before mile 80. It's right here, and that's blanks. The main thing I want to highlight is this has all the information you should need for planning, but there's more versions of this spreadsheet in the runner's guide. So I actually break it out with like vert and loss in each section, elevations a little bit more. So depending on how nerdy and granular you want to get, you can go to the runner's guide But this is the main course page. It has most stuff. Yellow indicates this is the second day cutoff. So just make sure to notice that. And then note again that we changed the last cutoff from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Gives you an extra hour to go from Raspberry 2 to the finish. And that's new for this year. The crew lists right here shows you the aid stations crews are allowed. Crews are not allowed at any aid station for any reason, spectating or otherwise, that says no. You cannot come to these aid stations. They're closed. You can come to every other one that says yes, and the only one that has any little complication is just going to Cottonwood, where you need to pay for the shuttle to get up there. You do have to pay for the shuttle. You can't run up there and drop somebody off and come back down. It's a single lane road, and it's just not suitable. So this is part of our permit. The Forest Service requires it. Please help us not jeopardize our permit and make sure to follow that. Down a little further, you've got these 6 links. You've got the PDF map right here, which is basically a printout version of the CalTopo map we've been referencing a lot. This is a geospatial reference PDF, so it will work if you upload it to like Gaia or Avenza. It will actually show you on there where you are, but you have to use the right app. Obviously, if you're just pulling this up in like Google Drive, it's not going to work that way. There's of course KML, so this is for like Google Earth. You get turn-by-turn instructions. These are written instructions, so you can physically read them. I don't personally find these very helpful, but some people do, so they're available. This side is, I think, the better of the two sides. There's an Avenza link, and the reason I like the Avenza is it takes you to a map that we've made that is geo-referenced again. And if you have this downloaded, it works in airplane mode. So at any point on the race, it's literally this map here that we've been referencing. It's just more conveniently located. And using that, if you ever get a point in the race where you're like, where am I? You can pull up this map. And so long as your phone is powered on, and this works in airplane mode, it pulls your GPS location and it puts you on the map, and you can physically see where you are. It's really handy for multiple reasons. I run with a phone these days. So it's my light source, music, audiobooks, podcasts, all that kind of jazz. And I also carry a map for every race I run now that has that, because it just feels a lot more comfortable for me to know that if I got off course, I could get back to course. Or conversely, if I was in a really sticky situation, I could get out quicker. This is a free map. Please use it. Highly recommend this for crews as well, because all of the crew driving routes are marked on this. So it shows you where you can go, how to get in there, where to park. And the nice thing about this, again, it works in airplane mode. So if you don't have cell service, which you won't for most of this race, as a crew, you can just follow along where you're driving and be like, oh, okay, I got to follow the blue line. I'm going to turn left here. Really handy. It also, back on the screen, has the GPX. This is where you can upload it to your watch, whatever you want to do. And then the crew and pacer manual. And this actually is an old link. I need to update that. This is also available if you go to runners, pacers, crews, and drop bags. And that's actually the next topic I want to cover. Before we do that, any questions on any of the mapping stuff, Avenza, GPX, that kind of jazz? Sorry, I think there's something in the chat. Yeah, you do have 50 minutes to get out of the starting gate, Michael, but don't ever use that. I've never had to let someone go out of the gate. That's just literally if like you have a car breakdown. You have to check into the race and be completed, checked in at 5:45. So if you're not checked in at 5:45 a.m., your bib gets pulled and we give it to somebody else. So you can't just like roll up late. If there's open spots and you rolled up late and your radiator blew or something like that, we'll have a conversation. And if everything feels good, I'll let you go. But don't plan on being late. Any other questions? All right, let's talk about crews and pacers. Link to the USDA info isn't working. Is that the? Yeah, that one. Yeah, I'll try to find the parent link for that. That's the result. So it's probably not linking because you didn't generate it yourselves. I'll see if I can find that and I'll post that in the comments at the end. Okay, let's talk about pacers, crews, and drop bags. Most folks use a crew or pacer at high-low. generally very fond of that. It's safer, helps you guys with a lot of sort of problem solving ability. You've got people there with lots of options for you. That said, crews and pacers from like my job are one of the hardest things to manage because they tend to come in the least informed, they're least prepared. So one of the things that I would really love for you guys to do is if you're bringing a crew and pacer is like make sure they have everything they need to be successful and be competent and self-sustained, because it's really hard come race day to be like, oh, where am I supposed to go? And trying to ask everybody else where they go, and everybody's sort of like tired and weather might be bad and stuff. So best thing you can do is prep and have everything planned out. To try to help you with that, I think I just haven't literally changed the name on this button. No, that's weird. Okay. This is right here. I think I didn't change it in other places. I'm sorry. Yeah. All right. So here's the 2023 crew manual on the runner's guide page. Those other two links I will fix right after we get off. But you just click it. They don't really change year to year, by the way, but do use the most recent one. The kind of big crew rules are listed first. They're fairly straightforward. You have to use the shuttle to Cottonwood. You can only have one crew vehicle at all at Hancock and Cottonwood. You cannot have multiple crew vehicles. So even if you have 10 people, 5 of them can't come. Or I mean, I guess if you have like a, Chevy Suburban or something, you can fit more, that's fine. But like one physical vehicle. You get a crew pass. That's the only way you're allowed to park at Cottonwood and Hancock. So you have to have that. You get that at runner check-in. You have to display that to park. Can't go to any non-crew accessible aid stations. So Antero's off limits, St. Elmo's off limits. You can't go to Tin Cup, can't go to Lost Wonder, Purgatory, Booses, none of those. There's no parking, there's safety concerns, there's major impact concerns from the Forest Service about having more people than absolutely necessary there. So make sure to really stress this one. If your crew is at an aid station they're not allowed to be at, and they assist you in any way, which we can define as strictly as just cheering you on, it can be a DQ. So this is a very important one to make sure that you guys have dialed in with your crews and pacers. This one, next rule is, again, I think fairly common at races, but it's happened at Hard Rock several years ago where a runner took aid outside of an aid station. That is an automatic DQ for any reason, sort of medical emergency. So if you are on a road and your crew's there and they pass you a bottle, that's a DQ. So don't do that. You can only do stuff at aid stations, and they have to be crew accessible aid stations, obviously, to use crew. Best practice is try to get to the aid station an hour and a half, 2 hours before your runner is expected. Obviously, you don't want to show up late, so you kind of want to come early, but like don't show up like 10 hours early to Hancock because there's just not good parking. There are parking attendants at almost all parking locations. Like Raspberry is so spread out, we don't usually have a parking attendant, but Blanks, Hancock and Cottonwood will. Monarch's a huge parking lot, so same deal there. There's no parking attendant. But in general, if someone's telling you where to park, please respect that and park where they're telling you. And then just don't be a dick. Like crews can be so awesome, and then sometimes you get a crew that's just like they're not having a good day and they're starting to get kind of grumpy and they're not treating people very well. And the volunteers are out here as a service to you as a runner, and they don't need to take shade from your crew because your crew is not having a good day. So make sure everybody's nice and polite and courteous and grateful, and everybody will have a fantastic time. For pacers, the pickup point is Hancock, like we've mentioned before. So you can switch at any crew accessible location, which means you can switch at Hancock, Monarch, Blanks, and Raspberry. Very common to run 3 pacers or 2. So Hancock to Monarch, Monarch to Blanks, Blanks to the finish. That's a common spread. I've seen people do like Hancock to Blanks, Blanks to the finish if they have 2. Whatever you want to break it down as, it's worth just, figuring that out beforehand and having a plan. All pacers have to carry the pacer bib. So it's a little yellow bib that just says pacer on it. To get the bib, you have to pass the gear check or come to gear check-in, runner check-in on Thursday. So if you're here early, Pacers come to the runner check-in, they can pick up their bibs. They sign the waiver, basically pick up a bib and go. Wherever they start running with you, there's a gear check, so they'll have their gear checked there. Or if your pacer's coming in on Friday, say, and they can't make it to Thursday, that's totally fine. They just go to the aid station they're pacing you from. So if they're pacing you, from Hancock, they pick up their bib at Hancock. If they're pacing you from Blanks, you don't pick up your bib at Hancock, you pick up your bib at Blanks. So just make sure they know that they got to go wherever they're pacing from. And there's no reason to, like, if you're coming in Friday, you don't need to go straight to Blanks, pick up your bib and then go to Hancock. Like, just get it when you get to Blanks. There's plenty of bibs, very simple process. Like, don't stress that, but make sure you get the bib. If you don't have the bib on, we can't let you run. So that's, pretty easy hurdle, but the biggest thing that stumbles people is not having the gear. So when you come to get your bib, you have to show them you've got the gear. So make sure your pacers have their gear. I mentioned this earlier, you can't pick up a pacer or pacer at a non-crew accessible aid station. So you can't pick up a pacer at Lost Wonder, Gooses, Chavano, for example. Those ones are off limits. Let's see, for muling is having somebody else carry something for you. So pacers are not allowed to carry gear for runners. So you can't be carrying poles for your runner. You can't be carrying their nutrition, their layers. Runners have to be operating as if they're fully self-sufficient from an equipment and nutritional standpoint. The caveat to this is that I'm completely fine with runners helping each other. So if you're running and you run into another runner and that runner's bonking and you want to pass them a gel, 100% okay. But your pacer couldn't pass them a gel. So if you're both running the race, you're both a registered runner, you can help each other as much as you want. We want that camaraderie and support. But definitely don't have your pacer be carrying stuff for you. Pacers don't get their own drop bags, but they can use your drop bag. So if you need to plan for, dietary stuff and you need to make sure they have something available, they use your bag. Pretty straightforward. Pacers do check in and out, but through the runner. So if you're running out of the aid station and you say, you're leaving Hancock, for example, and you've got a pacer, you'd yell, whatever your bib is, bib 50, bib 50, pacer out, and then they mark you down and then you're good to go. Really simple. You're only allowed more than one pacer at the very last section. Remember, that's the point where you hit the seat, you leave the CT and you hit the gravel road about 3.5 miles from the finish line. That's where you can have multiple pacers. There's no way to shuttle cars there, but you could park at the finish line, I guess, and run up to meet your runner there. That's fine. If you have somebody that wants to drop somebody off there and pick you up, that's okay too. Everybody who's running still has to have the required gear though. So even if your kid's picking you up to run you in on that section, they do have to have a pacer bib. They do have to have the required gear. Once you're in the finishing line, like you've left the road and you're in the field, I don't care about gear. Your kids, you still have to carry it. But kids finishing with you or all your pacers coming in together, that's fine. The race is done at this point. You still have to carry it because that's fairness, but don't worry about that for your toddler who wants to finish in the shoe with you. Okay, last thing about dogs. Highlands was not a great race for dogs. Cars get really hot, so you can't leave your dogs in there. Dogs have to be on leash 100% of the time. If your dog's not on leash, you'll leave the aid station. If you have to play twice, your runner's pulled. There's a lot of people who don't like dogs, and we love dogs. I have 2 of them, but you don't get to make somebody uncomfortable just because you didn't have a dog sitter or a way to take care of your dog. So you have to bring a dog. All the rules are in here. You must follow them. If you can board your dog or send your dog to doggy sleepover with some buddies, that's the way to go. We take their safety pretty seriously. So if we see a dog locked in a car at Cottonwood, no, that's not going to work. Cottonwood can get up to 80 degrees. Your dog's going to bake. We're going to break a window. So can't stress this enough. You can find a place to take care of your dog. Don't bring your dog to the race. If you do, make sure that you've got someone who's like, I'm the dog guy or dog girl, and they're managing that the whole way through. A couple of tips and yeah, Chuck, great point. I would say Chuck's bringing up that if you're not familiar with driving, mountain roads, make sure you allow extra time. Fantastic piece of advice. Also, a 4-wheel drive vehicle will get you everywhere you need to go. You can get by with an all-wheel drive vehicle like a Subaru or like a RAV4 or something. You can physically make it to all these aid stations in like a Prius or a Camry or something. It's going to make your day really stressful to try to be driving this, especially if there's any form of bad weather. So if you're renting a car and you're coming in, you can bring an all-wheel drive with clearance or a 4-wheel drive. You should try to bring that. I know the gas mileage and carbon footprint stuff, we really want to be fuel efficient vehicles, and 99% of the time I'd be on board with that. But in this scenario, if you can bring some clearance, that's definitely the way to go. And then Kevin brought up a good point, that you want to make sure you're set up before the race. Don't assume you can find something for the runner or the crew in BB or Salida. Certainly gear is incredibly hard to find here. 7,000 feet running store in Salida does carry most of the stuff you're going to need. Bottles, nutrition, packs, shoes, that kind of stuff, poles. But Andrew doesn't carry bivvies. So if you're trying to find this, there's one store in Salida, one store in BB, and you're going to have a hard time finding it. So make sure you come prepared. Really can't stress the great point from Kevin that eating as a crew is hard. Our tiny little mountain towns tend to close at 9. So, it's hard to get from Hancock into town, have food, and then go to Monarch and be ready to go. You really want to make sure your crew's also fueling and hydrating and sleeping, and because they're going to be better able to help you and safer if they're not totally depleted too. So plan this stuff out. Bring food in a cooler. If you can't bring stuff along, pick it up before you go to the next aid station and choreograph the timing on that. But just, the more you can plan, the better it's going to be. And I can't stress this enough. Knowing where you're going is key. The road to Hancock is so tough when it's wet, and the road to Blanks, you're going to feel like you're lost. It's like 18 miles of driving on this dark road that's super bouncy and dipping and weaving through all these gullies before you finally like pop out the last second. You're like, oh, I'm right at the aid station, but you'll swear you're lost for half of that drive. So, some people like to drive it before the race and scope it out. Fantastic idea, but at a minimum, have a map, and you'll be really helped out. All right, that's everything I had on my list. Any questions on what we covered, or any questions you didn't get a chance to ask earlier in the night? This is a great chance just to scatter shot with anything you haven't gotten a chance to ask yet. Oh, I guess, I'm sorry, there is one last thing I wanted to show you guys on this. There are directions for the driving directions to these places. And Hancock in particular, and Blanks, there's some pictures that are sort of useful, helps just figure it out. But written directions, coordinates, some photos, and some like diagrams of kind of like where to park and stuff like that. Doesn't print in very well in black and white. So, if you have a black and white printer, printing this off might be limited use. But if you have a digitally or a color printer, this is a great thing to give your crew before they show up, because it's a great backup. If they get lost or their phone dies or something, they have like a printout of where they're going. All right, that's it, officially it. Okay. Good, glad you guys enjoy this. Let's see, Kate's asking, how are trail conditions currently in 2 weeks? I got up to, Kelsey and I ran up to about 11,000 feet on Little Browns last weekend, on Sunday, and there was definitely a lot of snow above 11,000. CT is pretty much open from the start finish line to Fooses. I would guess the top of Fooses, like going up towards Monarch, is still pretty snowy. Definitely nothing on the divide is open. I wouldn't expect to have like reasonably fun running until like the last week of June, or probably better yet, the first week of July. So if you're trying to come out and train, like, even though it's getting close to the race, like honestly, July 4th weekend, like that's the best chance to come out and train. Yeah, I would say everything from basically 11,000 feet and up is skiing right now. Don't plan on running that in 2 weeks. Little Browns melts out first. So if you wanted to try to get up high, go to Little Browns, start at Raspberry. If you are a little later than that, the next thing that melts out is Laws Pass, but only on the St. Elmo side. The Cottonwood side has a big cornice that forms. You're always welcome to shoot me an email and just ask, and it's a great excuse for me to go out and check out something if I haven't, so don't be shy. Let's see, clarification. I'm just reading through the chat right now. Morgan's asking clarification on the pacers that join for the last 3 miles. They also need bibs and required gear. Yes. So if they're running from that 3.5 mile point in, they have to have the bibs and required gear. They have to sign the waiver too. Otherwise, it's huge liability for us. Once you're in the field, so I'll show you what that looks like. Once you're, so this is where you can have multiple pacers. You come off a Raspberry, you hit the road, you can pick up multiple folks here. They all have to have gear and bibs until you come into the field right here. So once you leave pavement for the last time, I don't care about pacers having gear, pacers having bib. That's when your family can just like mob you and cruise in with you. We're not gonna get too bent out of shape there. All right, more questions. Let's see. Few words on the waitlist odds. So oh man, the waitlist is weird this year. We've had so few drops compared to previous years, so I don't know what's happening. I think everybody's just training really, really well. They're not getting injured and life's cooperating, which is great. But it's obviously stressful if you're on the wait list. If you're 15 and down and you don't do your trail work, you're probably not going to run. If you do your trail work or pay the opt-out fee by the July 3rd deadline, or rather on July 3rd, you get moved up respectively. So anybody who's done their wait list, or sorry, their trail work and is on the wait list, say 5 people on each, the men's and women's have done it, you all get bumped to the front of the line, but you keep your respective positions. So it doesn't matter when you do it, as long as you do it, you jump the line. If you do that and you show up at the race, past 2 years, we haven't started a full field because of COVID and people getting sick. Now, the COVID's less this year, so I don't know what that plays out. In 2019, we had 2 people not show up to the runner check-in or gear check before the race. They checked in, got their bibs. One got food poisoning, one just didn't feel it. And we had 2 people at the start line with gear, gave them bibs and they ran. So if you do the work, I think the odds are good you can run. But it does take trail work and it does take showing up, because the trail work deadline is only 3 weeks before the race. So if you don't have flights and lodging and stuff lined up before that, it's going to be really hard to make that turnover unless you're local. Mike asked, reservations at the start finish line can be made where again? So if you go to run sign up, there are instructions or not instructions, there's a link called the store. You can go there and see what spots are available. Most of the, I'll drop it in the chat, but most of the campsites are booked up. Thursday's all booked up. I think Friday's all booked up. So there's no more spots available. Let's see. Yep, digital Corsar card is totally fine. I forgot about the Corsar card. Damn it. Okay, thank you, Krista, for reminding me. So you don't have to carry this, but everybody who runs, Pacers included, has to have purchased a Corsar card, which stands for Colorado Search and Rescue. The link to that on how to purchase it is in the required gear list. It's at the bottom. Didn't scroll far enough. That's why I missed it. Thank you for catching that. They're super cheap. They're $3 for 1 year, or like, what's a 12 for 5 years. All this does is it allows the search and rescue groups, which are fully volunteered, to be reimbursed for the cost of rescuing your butt if you get stuck. So it basically allows them to fund themselves in the event of an unfortunate scenario. If they don't, it's all out of pocket, including the gear that people are using. Half the time, that's their personal gear. So it's just a really nice way to make sure that we're not putting undue burden on the people who help keep us safe. So make sure you do that. You don't have to print it off. You don't have to carry it while you run, but when you pick up a bib or you are checking in, you have to show proof of it. So I save it as a PDF on my phone, and if I need to show somebody, I just pull it up. Or you can print it off, laminate it, stick it in your pack, but definitely laminate it or it just falls apart when you sweat on it. Yep, pacers have to have everything runners have. Always pacers are equal to runners. That is just a rule of thumb. If you have to have it, they have to have it. Easiest way to think about it. Let's see. I think that's all the questions in the chat. All good questions though. Anything else that we didn't cover that you guys want to talk through, or clarifications on something that didn't make sense? Okay, going once, going twice. All right, call that a wrap. One last question right under the radar. No custom names on your bib. We put them on there for safety reasons, so we don't do anything too crazy. Just match whatever you registered with, and bib numbers are assigned in chronological order. So earlier you signed up, lower your bib. Last minute bibs get the 175s and up. We always know you just snuck in. All right, thanks everybody in the chat for sticking around and contributing, all of you guys for coming on board. I'm stoked to see you. I hope it's a good year training wise for you guys and kick ass when we see you in the swatch. If you have any questions later too, don't feel shy, shoot me an email. If you want to see this later, like I said, we'll upload it to YouTube. I probably won't do that tonight. It'll probably be like sometime over the weekend, I'll get it up. But yeah, good luck, best of luck with training, and see you guys in July, not sooner.